something's called old school, there's tradition in it. Maybe a touch of nostalgia. That's cool. But there's one place where old school isn't cool, and that's today's school. School's not the place to do things the way they used to be done. Think about the way the world has changed since you went to school. The way students learn has to change with it. That's why LCPS is going digital. By combining technology and hands-on learning, we're taking the shortest path to the future.
We're going to call this meeting of the Lenore County Board of Education to order. We will recognize Ms. Lynch for the invocation.
Let us pray. May the words spoken in this room tonight be beneficial to the students, parents, staff, and administrators in our school system, and may we be led by the guiding principle to always base our decisions on the best interest of our young people. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item is the approval of the agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Noble, second by Mr. Stroud to approve the agenda. All in favor, raise your right hand. The agenda for tonight is approved. Next item is the board chair comments. I do have a few comments tonight. The first one is the district implementation team for the Individual Learning Creates Personal Success program. I want to thank everybody who's serving on the district implementation team. I know it's a lot of people and they've been putting in a lot of extra hours in order to get this project going for us. I also want to thank specifically our digital learning specialists. And I'm trying to make sure I get all the acronyms right because these are all new positions for us. But we now have a digital learning specialist at each elementary school and they are working very hard to put together and implement this program for us. Also want to thank Bruce Hill as a board member who's serving on that committee. I know I've had a chance to sit in on a couple of meetings. I know everybody in the committee is very excited to get this going, and we have asked several of those specialists, our digital learning specialists, to come and make a brief presentation to the board tonight, just kind of to let you, update you on where we're going, and I think you'll see for yourselves how excited they are. The next item I want to talk about is the voucher litigation. As most of you know, we approved earlier in the year to join a lawsuit opposing the voucher law here in North Carolina. There was a ruling made in that case finding that that law in fact was unconstitutional. The judge concluded, and I'm going to read to you from his findings because I think everybody needs to hear this because this was the reason we got involved in this case. The judge found that the General Assembly is seeking to push at-risk students from low-income families into non-public schools in order to avoid the cost of providing them a sound basic education in public schools. He also went on to say that the General Assembly was failing the children of North Carolina when they sent them with public taxpayer money to private schools that have no legal obligation to teach them anything. You know, this was specifically what we discussed among the board as our concerns in this case, and I think we were all glad to see that the courts in fact agreed with us in entering that ruling. While I'm speaking about the General Assembly, I think everyone knows we've got an election coming up in a month. And when I think about that, there was a new study that came down, and I know most of you have seen it through a company called Wallet Hub that rated the best and worst states in the country for teachers. They looked at all 50 states and the District of Columbia. And North Carolina was rated number 51. The worst state in the country for teachers. Part of the reasons for that rating were that we were also ranked number 47 in annual salaries for teachers. We were ranked number 48 in per student spending in the country. Now, granted, and I'm just say this on the record, these were done before the recent salary increases that the legislature passed. So that may change that a little. But we think it's obvious that, at least to our leaders, public education is not a priority. And I don't know any way to say it other than our children deserve to have leaders who will make public education a priority. In closing, I do want to point to one other piece that's been in the news, because I think it's kind of a contrast. Despite the fact that we have the lowest funding, and it's one of the least favorable places for teachers, the latest report in September is that North Carolina's 2014 graduation rate was the highest in North Carolina history. We have gone from a rate of 68.3% in 2006 to 83.9% in 2014. So congratulations to all the educators out there, because they are doing a great job with the limited resources they have. But if we keep going on like we have the last 4 years, there's no way they can keep it up. We have to make public education a priority. So I hope everyone out there will do that. The next item is Dr. Mazinga.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Start with some special recognition for the Board of Education. We have received a certificate from the North Carolina School Boards Association, a Special Achievement Award to the Lenoir County Board of Education for successful completion of the 12-hour training requirement by all members of the board for the 2013-14 academic year. So this is really saying that the school board did their homework. And I'm very proud of them. They have been attending conferences and getting those hours that are required of them, but also they're interested enough in what's happening with their students to go and learn what's new and what are the best approaches to use for our students. And I say thank you, and I'll present the certificate to the chairman.
Thank you.
The next one is certainly a very, very important endeavor, or very important news. Brandon English, which I think most of you know is a senior at Kinston High School, currently is ranked by ESPN as the #1 player to recruit among all of the class of 2015 high school basketball players in North Carolina, and number 12 in the United States. Brandon is a 6'8" forward who led the Vikings to another 2A state championship last year. Currently is visiting campuses and considering scholarship offers from Duke University, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, North Carolina State University, the University of Kansas, the University of Kentucky, and UCLA. Now that's pretty impressive. Not only is Brandon a great athlete, he has the grades to get in these schools. Certainly an all-around student that everyone is proud to have. Both in Lenoir County and Kinston High School. Right, Madam Principal? We will have Brandon in to celebrate as he makes a decision between these very prestigious schools that are trying to recruit him, both as an athlete and as a scholar. So we're very, very proud of Mr. English. Next, I believe we have Heather Watson, a 4th grade teacher at Northeast Elementary, in the audience. So I think we're going to want to get a picture of you when I'm talking about your accomplishment. She has co-authored an article published in the current edition of the Journal of Science Activities. The article, The Poetry of Dandelions, Merging Content Area Literacy and Science Content Knowledge in a 4th grade science classroom, was written with 2 professors from the College of New Jersey and will be part of a presentation at the New Jersey Science Convention later this month. So congratulations to our teachers that are stepping out there and writing articles, getting published, all for what's best for the students. So congratulations. Also, we have received a 21st Century Community Learning Grant. It was actually awarded to Kinston Promise Neighborhoods, and that will allow 80 to 100 second and third graders at Southeast Elementary School to receive free after-school programming. The program will focus on academics, character education, mentoring, and student development, as well as a summer enrichment camp. It is scheduled to begin in mid-October. So thank you to Kinston Promise Neighbors for applying for and receiving the 21st Century Grant. You've already heard some about ILCPS. We have an exciting presentation coming up a little later, so I'm not going to steal that thunder. I will just say that we are underway and we are on schedule, and we are all extremely excited. And I also want to thank all of those people that are putting forth a great deal of effort to make sure we're ready when these devices are deployed. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Mazinga. Next item is public comment. And I understand no one has signed up to speak tonight. We'll move to the presentation portion of the agenda. The first item is the Montelou Technology Academy presentation. Mr. Julian, Ms. Cofield, and Ms. Hood.
And I'd like to introduce them if they would come forward and give you a little brief summary of where we are. As everyone has said tonight, we are moving forward with ILCPS. Most of the devices are in, actually, and we're planning for these devices to be deployed to the teachers late October, early November, and then deployment to the students in mid-November. There is much work going on behind the scenes as this digital learning team plans staff development, works out procedures, works out the details for the deployment. And as a way to help us prepare the best that we can, we did visit Montelou Technology Academy, which is a school in Guilford County. And tonight we have 3 of our digital team members who went on that visit with us, and they are here to talk about the visit, what they saw, and how they can and they will show you how they can apply what we saw to our project in Lenoir County. So we're very happy to welcome on my right Shirley Cofield. She's a digital learning specialist at Northeast. Andrew Julian is at LaGrange. He's also the digital learning specialist, and the one also at Banks is Ashley Hood. We're very happy to have these 3 people with us, and they have a very interesting presentation prepared for you, so I'll turn it over to them.
All right, thank you very much for letting us present. One of the biggest things that we wanted to do when we started this endeavor is see what this actually looks like. This is a significant move for our school district, and we wanted to make sure that we got it right. So by going to see Montelou Technology Academy, it was a good way for us to visualize what we eventually want to see in our schools as well. One of the slogans that they used is that they were powered up, and I thought that was a good way to start the presentation because that was an initiative and a thought that not only their students, staff, and their principal shared, and they expressed that quite vividly when we met. So we knew from the moment that we walked in the door that everyone in that school was behind this initiative, and we got behind that very quickly as well. Just to give everyone some brief background, Montelou Academy of Technology is in High Point, North Carolina. They are a K-5 an elementary school that recently changed from a math and science focus to a technology focus, and then facilitated that change by implementing a one-to-one iPad initiative, very similar to what we intend to do as well. We wanted to make sure that we articulated the similarity in demographics between Montelou Academy of Technology and Lenoir County Public Schools, because we don't want anyone to think that one-to-one initiatives are just for wealthy counties, and it will only benefit wealthy counties. These are initiatives that will benefit all students, and especially our students. Montelou Academy of Technology is 98% majority, and 96% of their students are on free and reduced lunch, and that parallels some of the demographics that we have in our county as well. So not only by going to see Montelou Academy do we see what this would look like in motion, we were also able to see what this will look like in motion with students that are strikingly similar to our students. So it gave us a very nice perspective on what is possible when we move further into this initiative. Since Montelou's one-to-one deployment, we wanted to make sure that the things that we saw were actually working. So a lot of us asked questions when we were there, specifically regarding proficiency, some of the standards by which we hold our counties, and whether students are reaching what they are capable of. In terms of proficiency, they saw an increase the first full year of implementation. Now we know we're implementing in the middle of the year, and I think that will serves as even more potential for us to see that exact same result. So an increase in proficiency. They also saw an increase in student growth. So even if students weren't meeting the state standard for proficiency, their students were achieving at a higher level than they had the previous year. They also saw increased community involvement, and that's something that goes outside of the classroom and outside of the walls as well, that their community was getting involved in seeing that their students were succeeding as well. They also saw an increase in attendance. When students are at school, there's a greater potential for them to learn. They also saw increases in student engagement and then also parental involvement as well. So they saw significant increases across the board in all domains that we value for our students, for us as teachers, and I'm sure for you as the Board of Education. So we thought that was very profound, that it wasn't just an academic gain, it was also gains in the community and the perspective on how this was important and how this was benefiting their students. Oh, I guess that was me still as well. Sorry. The first thing that we thought was there were students at school that wanted to be at school. And we know that that's not always the case, but the other thing that we noticed was that percentage of faculty. Their faculty wanted to be there as well. So when you have students and teachers that want to be at school and are actively engaged in this experience, it is almost inevitable that these great gains will be seen.
Okay, since they wanted to be there, actually I got these two backwards. Isn't that useful? Since they wanted to be there, we'll have the opportunity to teach them what we always have. I'll speak it to the next slide. Actually.
Okay, there you go.
But with the one-to-one initiative, they'll begin to be able to think on a more global level. With greater access to information, students will begin to think globally and share their information outside the walls of the classroom. So students are actively being able to share, going online, learning to determine reliable and unreliable sources, and which are all life skills that they'll need as professionals, as adults. Students learning becomes not just for regurgitation, but they have a reason for why they're learning, and it has meaning to them. So the students that we visited in the classrooms could tell us why they were learning it and why it was important.
And so there's an old adage that says, to whom much is given, much is required. And we have been given the awesome task and responsibility to share what we know with our students and with the teachers. And it was shared with the team that the school had created a blended environment where not only was technology used, but pencil and paper had not been thrown out the window, because we know that that's an important part of anything that we do. And the one-to-one initiative is a very important part of that, but we want the students to be able to work together and use everything to help them move forward. We went into a classroom where students, you ask the question, how do they know? How can you show me what you know? As we went across to a classroom, Dr. Mazingo wanted to share, because he was quite excited, so was Mr. Hill, and he wanted to share what he saw. And as we walked in the classroom, there was a student who patiently waited until his enthusiasm just overcame him. And he came to Dr. Mazingo and he said, please come on, I have something to share with you. And he said, of course. That's because students are in school, they know what they're doing, they want to share. So what this tells me is that students are not consumers, where they're only being allowed to get what the teacher gives them. They're now becoming producers of that education, where they take what they learn and they can produce it from a world perspective. And we think that that is extremely important. And we think that in Lenoir County, we have the capability of doing this, making it work, because of all of the background work that has been done. And we're excited, and we know that this can happen. And I think one point that's extremely important is that Montlou is one school. We in Lenoir County is the whole district doing the same thing at the same time. And that's why I think we have the opportunity to be extremely successful.
So this brings us to our take-home message, and we wanted to make sure that we express to you what was the one thing that was kind of the most important thing that we saw there. And I'll start. For me, it was perspective. Those students recognized that there was more to education than just the four walls of a classroom. They started to see the influence of other people on their education than just their teachers. They saw how all of the resources that they now had access to would ultimately help them become more educated and change their lives. And to the same regard, they saw that their venue for expressing, much like Ms. Cofield said, is also beyond just the four walls of that classroom. That they have the potential to affect more than just themselves, more than just their classmates, more than just their class, but anything far and beyond what is traditionally seen in a classroom.
The piece that provided the most impact for me was the whole changed culture of the school. There was this web of information going on between administrators to staff, staff to staff, teachers to students, students to teachers, and there was learning going on at all those levels. And it was very obvious in just being in that school. This wasn't just isolated technology. This was very well integrated, and all the parties were engaged in creating the best learning environment for the school. So they even made the comment at the very end that it was the people, not the devices, that transformed their school. So it's that relationship building piece that really impacted me.
And I think what impacted me was the fact that the school had clear, defined expectations for the teachers, for the students, and everyone involved. And when you have clear expectations, then you're going to be sure to have success. And I think that is one of the things that we have tried to do in Lenoir County, is make sure before anything is done that we have clear, defined expectations of everyone involved.
Now, we said at the beginning of the presentation that Montlou was powered up, and we don't want that to be lost on you guys. So we're not yet powered up, but we are powering up. No, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I had a wonderful day. I was actually in the group with Ms. Cofield and well, actually you too, Andrew. But the funniest thing that happened when I was going around talking to the kids were very talkative. By the way, Montlou Technology Academy has a fancy name. It is a K-5 public school, okay? I want to make sure we're clear about that. With certainly in not a privileged neighborhood.
Yeah.
Given the free lunch, I think it's 98%. 96% free and reduced lunch gives you a picture. These students look like our students. I walked up to a pair of first graders that were teamed up, a boy and a girl. The girl had the iPad, the boy had a paper pencil, because it was one of those blended activities. And so I said, "You guys having fun?" And the girl said, "Oh yeah, we love this." She's holding this iPad, and the boy shakes his head like that. And the girl looked at me and said, "He's all right. He just wants to use the iPad." So we truly saw the impact that this has in terms of engagement and excitement for the kids, and how it kind of brought education all together, and also in a manner in which they're going to live their lives. We're all going to live in that blended environment, and that's what they were using to learn. And that's soon what our students will be learning when we are powered up and we are getting there. I want to say thank you to the team. Our digital learning specialists are very special people, and they're very excited. They will certainly do the daily hard work of helping teachers be successful using this technology and helping our students learn. And so thank you. Keep up the good work. We're actually going to bring in 3 of our digital learning specialists every board meeting to give us an update on where they are. This is our first group. It certainly will not be our last. And we may see these again before the year's over. So thank you again. Any questions from the board?
You just said that they changed their focus from math to technology, and it's one school in that district that's doing that.
Yeah, they were functioning on their own as a math and science focused school, and when they were a couple years in, they expressed that they didn't feel as though that need was necessarily serving its purpose, and this was 4 years ago for them. They're 4 years into their implementation. They thought the technology, as a forward-thinking school, and they're functioning completely on their own, thought the technology was the most appropriate approach at that point in time, and then they started to move through the same process that our district has for moving to a one-to-one initiative, and just wrapped their technology focus using those devices kind of as their mechanism for change. So all of their instruction, not all of their instruction, but a majority of their instruction integrates those devices in an intuitive way so that technology finds its way into their lessons in a way that's not kind of unnecessary, but it enhances that instruction.
So are they using like a magnet concept? You say since it's one school, is it like a magnet concept school?
It's I believe it's 70% based on geographic, and then about 30% magnet.
Right. They have a magnet concept, so a student can choose to attend there if they'd like to attend this particular concept.
And they have a waiting list.
They have a
they
waiting
do
list. They usually do.
But the math and science magnet concept was not really attracting the students. It was a school in which they wanted to attract students to come in, but since they've been doing this, it has attracted those students to come in. And they're being quite successful, obviously. It was good to see this working with students, like our team said, very much like our students here. Very similar. It wasn't a brand new, beautiful facility either. The school was of the age of some of our older buildings, actually. But it was beautiful in what was happening inside.
I think another interesting thing that we should mention is that technology that may not apply with the new technology that we have, they found other ways to use it. There was pictures and music and everything that put all of the technology that they had at the school into works. I mean, you walked in the hallway, there were things being displayed. You walked in the cafeteria, students' work was on display. Mr. Hill got so excited that, he probably could do a presentation by himself.
It's been awful quiet over there.
I got a question about, I know when you go to the schools and you bring in new stuff like this here, you talk, most of the time you get to talk to the students that are doing real good. How are they, did y'all ask about the slower kids, how are they gaining this concept with the computer? Are we seeing build up for the slower kids, the kids that, that are not the highlights of the school, but the slower kids, how's the computers influencing them?
For myself, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is probably going to be for the majority of us. As we walked into a classroom, we could not discern the difference.
You could.
That's true. Very true.
As soon as you asked that, I started to think, no, that is in 100% honesty, we could not discern between, if you asked me after watching that classroom for even probably 20, 30 minutes.
So you see growth, so what you're seeing growth all around.
All around, and I think that what the technology allows for is a realistic, individualized approach where every student can be met at their level so that growth can be met for that student. Not met, but growth can be made by that student in a way that's most appropriate for them. So whether a student is incredibly intelligent or just maybe your average student, they're interacting with the technology and instruction in the curriculum in a way that's meaningful for them at their level, at their point in time. And
You would go in a classroom and you would see students appear to be doing the same thing, but it was easy to differentiate the instruction from the iPad, and no one ever knew what anyone else was doing. But they were working, as Andrew said, on their level.
There was definitely differentiated learning going on in all the classrooms, whether they were, even when they were producing things, they were choosing what spoke to them. Some were making a comic, some were making a video, some or, just doing different avenues of that production. So it's very differentiated even in their production.
I think it's important to note that all the students were busy, all the students were engaged, and they were all learning, even though when you really got down and looked, you could tell they were doing different things. Especially in math class. They had the math classes broken up in about 4 or 5 groups, I remember. And those groups were very differentiated in terms of the tasks that they were taking on. But there was no one left behind. They were all busy and they were all working on what they needed to work on.
Now, how long has this school been operating this program?
4 years. So they're 4 years in.
So we know that the background is a success with that school.
That's right.
Very good.
Also, if a teacher was doing something whole group on an interactive whiteboard, the students were engaged on their own iPad, first graders, for instance, were having calendar time, and they were doing it on an interactive board as a whole class, but they were also doing it individually on their iPads, so everybody was focused on what was going on and responsible for their own learning too.
An impressive part is that the students not only did work on a computer, but they could talk to you about what they were doing. A well-rounded student where when they talk to you, there's always eye contact with you. It wasn't that they were talking and they were embarrassed or bashful. They knew what they knew and they wanted to share it with you. And so they did that.
They were very proud students, very proud.
Well, Dr. Mazingo, I want to thank you for bringing this first team because it kind of answers some questions that have been coming to me as far as how the students would learn on it. And I think that when you make learning fun, kids will be engaged and they'll do better and their scores, everything will just go up because they like to do it. When I was in school, I think if I had something like this, I might would have liked it better. But I mean, when you make learning fun and kids are learning, they'll grow. I mean, and I truly believe that because I've been getting some questions about that. Mr. Noble's question was, one that was kind of fielded to me once. But when you engage them, I think that they all catch on, even if, like you said, with the differentiation, they'll still all be learning and growing. And I think that's what we want is growth. So thank you all. So thank you.
Let me ask this, and I think I know the answer, but I'd like everybody else to hear it too. What did you observe about the children and their care of the technology and maintaining the technology?
They use a slogan called "Hug it like you love it," and I know there's
Okay.
I'm sure this is coming up because there's a lot of concern that they're very valuable, monetarily valuable devices. And they had expressed to us, because we asked specifically what goes on when one breaks, and they were almost puzzled to the extent that they said over their 4-year deployments of 700 devices, they've had one broken device.
Amazing.
None lost, stolen, anything.
And they also let their 3rd through 5th grade students take those devices home.
Wow.
No
That's
loss.
amazing.
They said it, when we kind of prodded a little bit further, that it's just establishing that there's expectations and that culture of that it's very valuable, and the students come to associate that as being their mechanism for growth as well. That it becomes very valuable to them as an educational tool, and it's not something that they want to abuse, lose, or break.
I actually asked a little boy, I said, what happens if you lose that iPad? He said, I have to pay $250. That's not really the case, but they ingrained in them that they're valuable and they're not losing.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you very
All
much.
right, we thank you all for coming. Next item on the agenda will be Ms. Davis with the financial report.
We're going to be as excited about this?
I want to request to go before they start presenting, because this is not as exciting, but it is important. Okay. The financial report reflects the year-to-date activity by providing revenue and expenditure information as to all the sources of funds received and expended by fund and purpose as of September 30, 2014. May I answer any questions?
Have we removed any funds from the fund balance as of yet? I know we talked about there would be some funds removed from the fund balance.
Not at this point in time.
So,
And our goal was to hold that fund balance pretty steady, and it's holding there, and it should hold through the year pretty steady. We're trying not to build fund balance, not necessarily reduce it. So there'll be a little fluctuation up and down, but it should stay pretty steady about where it is. I actually did tell the senior staff this morning that we had a great presentation by the digital learning specialist coming up, and then I said the rest of the board meeting is pretty boring.
Sometimes boring is good.
That's right, especially when you're talking about the financial report.
Absolutely. Is there any other questions for Ms. Davis this evening? All right, thank you, Ms. Davis. Next item is the 2014-2016 school improvement plans, Ms. Benton.
Which is also very exciting.
Very exciting.
Very long.
that's for sure.
They saved me for last on presentation because it is the most exciting.
Before Ms. Benton gets started on the process, and she may cover some of this, I'd just like the board to know that this process is taken very, very seriously by our schools and by our central staff. These are real plans. These are plans that are used constantly in the school to try to improve what is going on in the school. Much thought and effort goes into these before we see them. Here at the central office, there is a panel that reviews them and discusses all of these with the principals and those that have put these together. So these are not something that's thrown together, put in a notebook, and put up on the shelf. These are living, breathing documents that are the result of much effort and thought and consideration and planning.
And they do drive what goes on at the schools, which will drive ILCPS as well. So that's what makes them exciting this time. Okay, every 2 years, schools begin a new school improvement planning cycle. On board docs, you received each school's plan for 2014-16. The plans are reflective of the state recommended Plan, Do, Check, Act school improvement planning process. And I'm going to kind of go through the process so you can see just what Dr. Mazingo was saying, how involved it is to put together these plans. The schools have been in the plan phase of school improvement since last spring. At that time, school improvement teams analyzed data from their schools, including test and survey data, in order to determine the school's strengths and areas for improvement. From the areas of improvement, the school improvement teams determined 3 or 4 priority goals, the key areas in which they will put their focus for the next 2 years in order to drive school improvement. After determining goals, strategies and action steps with timelines for implementation were developed. Although the process and the template is district-wide, the actual plans are very school-specific. As you look through the plans, you can see the culture of each school infused in the plan. Now, those goals and strategies and action steps are the meat of the plans, but there's a lot more in the documents that you have to review this month. Also included in the plans are the Title I school-wide compliance review that was done by all our Title I schools, which would be all the elementary, middle, and the Learning Academy. There's also a section where the schools show how they are compliant to state statutes and local policies that are required to be addressed in the plans. There's a professional development plan, a parent involvement plan, an LEA funding flexibility alignment. There also is a Safe Schools plan, which is a separate document that in board docs was in the administrative section because they are not public documents. They're also included in some plans is a focus school plan. That was done by our 5 focus schools, which are Banks, Contentna Savannah, Frink, Rochelle, and Woodington. 2 years ago, they received focus designation through the ESEA waiver because they each had an achievement gap between two subgroups that exceeded the state average of 38.7 percentage points, or they had a subgroup whose scores were below 50% proficient for the last 2 of the 3 years prior to that designation 2 years ago. So each of the focus schools developed a focus plan to outline the strategies for closing those gaps or raising achievement of the subgroup. Lenore County Early College High School's plan is a little bit different. They submit a yearly plan to the New Schools Project, which contains data analysis, goals, strategies, and action steps. So in order to keep them from having to develop 2 different plans, the data and goals section of our school improvement template is their New Schools Project plan, which has to be stored electronically on a live binder. So in their plan, you'll see a link to that live binder. So when you're reviewing their plan, if you have trouble connecting to that link, just call me and let me know, or call Mr. Harvey and we'll see what's going on with it. I could get it to come up and see if you can. After the school improvement plans were developed, the principals and the school improvement chairs presented the plans to a central office team that checked them for compliance of state and federal laws and local policies and gave suggestions when appropriate. I would like to congratulate the schools for what the central office team felt were very strong school improvement plans that truly focused on the school's needs. I think you'll agree with that when you review them. After the central office review, the plans were presented to the staff at each school, and the staff voted to approve the plans by secret ballot. The principal then signs the plan. You won't see that signature on your copies, but the hard copy of the signature page has been sent to me. So you can see they have been very busy since last spring. All throughout the summer, teams of teachers and school improvement teams met to work on the plans. The school improvement plans presented tonight are really only the first step of the whole process. After board approval, the schools will begin implementing the plans. A review process is a large part of that implementation. You will notice in the template that there are fields that have not yet been filled out because they are designated for documentation of review. A review each semester is required. However, most schools have monthly meetings of the school improvement teams and keep reviewing the plans on an ongoing basis, ensuring that they are living documents that truly drive improvement. School improvement teams may make changes to the school improvement plan at each semester review, and any changes that they make are submitted to central office. You will see ILCPS reflected in the plans. The implementation of ILCPS is more detailed in the elementary plans, as you would suspect, because they are farther along in the process. Middle and high schools do have strategies and action steps for beginning to implement ILCPS, but they will be adding to those. I didn't want you to think that those goals were not very developed. They will be adding to those as their rollouts come. Now, your role in the school improvement planning process is mandated through North Carolina General Statute. The local school board must ensure that every school has a school improvement plan, and it must accept or reject each school improvement plan. After the plan is accepted, the board may not make any substantive changes. If the school board rejects a plan, it must specify the reasons. The school improvement team can then submit another plan addressing the issues that led to the rejection. If the issues cannot be resolved through the rewriting of the plan or through the State Board of Education resolution process, the local school board may develop a plan for the school. The school improvement plans will be an action item for approval at the November board meeting. As you study the school improvement plans this month, please feel free to call me or the principals to answer any questions that you have about the plans. And I'll be glad to answer any general questions you have.
Ellen, my one question is, how involved are the people that have to execute these plans, which includes the kids? How involved are they? Or are they in?
Well, at the elementary level, the students probably are not as involved. Now, there is a board policy that recommends a student being on the school improvement team at the middle and high schools, and you'll see that some of them have put students on their school improvement plans. Now, as far as the teachers in the school, most of the schools have a process, or the schools have a process where they elect, the school improvement team has to be elected by secret ballot, and it must be representative of the school, including the parents must be representative of the school population. The way the school improvement teams work is they go back to the group that they represent and get ideas from that group, bring it to the school improvement team meetings for discussion as a team so that the whole school can hear. So I feel really good about the staffs at the school have a lot of input into these plans in the entire process through their own representative. Did that answer your question, Mr. Nobles?
Pretty much.
Any other questions? Well, enjoy reading them this month.
Thank you, Ms. Benton. Moving to the action portion of the agenda, the first item is the Pierce Group Benefits Service Agreement. Ms. Davis.
Okay, I would like to recommend for approval the Pierce Group Benefits Agreement. It provides the services for our flexible dependent care, vision, dental, accidental, cancer, life insurance, and other employee benefits. This agreement is to renew the employee benefit services for the 2015 plan year. Do you have any questions?
The Pierce Group has worked well for our employees. There seems to be a very high level of satisfaction with the products that they provide for our employees. Changing is disruptive for employees. So unless we have a reason to put this out to bid and look for another group that may take over this role, we recommend that we renew these. With the high level of satisfaction and the good products they provide, we think they have earned the nod from you again to provide those services for our employees.
These relate specifically to the flexible benefit
Yes.
plan.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all they provide
the
for us?
voluntary benefits.
Right. These are products that are not required.
Not required, but if our employees choose to participate, they can.
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, I move we renew the Pierce Group service contract.
All right, motion made by Mr.
Second.
Nobles, second by Mr. Hill. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Therefore, all in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion passes and it is approved. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Next item is some surplus property.
Good evening. We included in your packet a list of items from our child nutrition department. We have 9 items from 6 of our schools. The items are no longer in operational condition, or it would take more to fix them than they're actually worth. Tonight we're asking for your approval to have these items declared surplus and to be disposed of with any benefits, any proceeds going to the child nutrition department.
Move to declare the child nutrition salvage surplus.
Motion made by Mr. Smith,
Second.
second by Mr. Hill. Stroud. Any further discussion on the motions concerning the surplus property? All in favor, raise your right hand. The motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Next item is the out-of-state and out-of-the-country school trips. Ms. Lynch.
We do have several requests for field trip approval. The first one is Continuous Savannah has a group of students going to Washington, D.C. in April. North Lenore has a group that will be attending the National Convention, National FFA Convention in Louisville. Their meat evaluation team won first place in the state, so they'll be competing at the national level. Then Kinston High's basketball team will be participating in 2 tournaments, one in South Carolina in December, one in Massachusetts in January. Kinston tonight is also requesting approval for a group of students to go to Washington DC in March. Also requesting approval for students to participate in a trip to Spain and France in June. That's after school is out. And then South Lenore is also requesting students to attend a trip to Puerto Rico during the spring break.
Can we go on to Spain and France?
If you pay the money.
We need board members to supervise.
Supervise that.
Some volunteer chaperones up here, Brandon.
Motion
Move
to
to
approve
approve.
the out-of-state and out-of-country school trips as presented.
Motion made by Mr. Hill,
Second.
second by Mr. Smith. Any further discussion about the out-of-state and out-of-country school trips? Therefore, we'll call it for a vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. The school trips are approved. Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Next item is a motion to go to closed session.
I move that Lenore County Board of Education go to closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11 to prevent disclosure of confidential personnel files, to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege, and consider matters relating to initial employment of an individual employee.
Motion made by Mr. Hill. We have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Miller. All in favor of going into closed session, raise your right hand. We are now in closed session. We're now back in open session. Next item is the personnel report with the addendum.
I move we approve the personnel report with the addendum.
Motion made by Mr. Filippelli,
Second.
second by Mr. Stroud. All in favor of approval of the personnel report with the addendum, raise your right hand. It's approved unanimous. All in favor of approval of the personnel report with the addendum, please raise your right hand. Hold it up for a second. My observation is that it is unanimous. Next item is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by
Second.
Mr. Hill, second by Mr. Smith. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, we are now adjourned. Thank you.